Welcome back to another episode of Behind Our Lens. I'm Jess.
And I'm Steph, and today we're going to be talking to producer Liz, pop culture analyst, about all things TIFF 2023. She's our first guest on Behind Our Lens. Welcome, Liz.
I'm so excited to be your first guest. Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what brings you to TIFF this year?
Yeah, so I'm a pop culture analyst, like you said. I'm based out of Halifax, so I come up for TIFF every year. This year I'm an official creator with TIFF, so I'm shooting content, going to some premieres for movies that have interim agreements, and covering everything on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. And Letterboxd too. You can find my reviews on Letterboxd. So here as a fan of film, here as a huge advocate for the Canadian film scene, and someone that tries to show the international community just how sexy and cool Canadian film can be. And yeah, I'm just so excited. This year's festival has been a little bit more interesting, so I'm so excited to dig into it with folks that have also been to the premieres and have been seeing the behind the scenes of how this year's been going down.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a different year for sure.
Yeah, so do you want to tell us a little bit more about the strike and how it's making TIFF completely different this year?
Yeah, so this is my understanding of what's going on. Not TIFF's or anybody else's, but producer Liz's take on all of this. Yeah. The SAG-AFTRA and the WGA strikes have meant that people are not promoting their projects unless they have interim agreements, which is when a film or an independent production goes to SAG-AFTRA and gets this agreement that says that they agree to all of the rules and all of the asks from SAG-AFTRA that they're advocating for against the AMPTP. SAG-AFTRA kind of gives them the stamp of approval that they can go promote their film. So there's a lot of films this year, not just at TIFF, but around the world that are really big that have these agreements. So Priscilla with Jacob Elordi is one of them, and they were just at Venice, and Kaylee, who plays Priscilla in that film, won the biggest award at Venice Film Festival. So that's an example of a film that's doing really well and has a lot of award season buzz that can do exactly what you would expect of a film during film festival season. They're walking the carpet, they're doing fashion, they're doing interviews, all that stuff. For TIFF this year, there's a variety of films that got interim agreements that are here. Seven Veils is one of them, so I was at the premiere for Seven Veils yesterday. That movie has Amanda Seyfried as the lead in it. She chose not to come, and she actually put up a big post on her Instagram saying, I'm not coming, and I support SAG-AFTRA, even though SAG-AFTRA is telling folks that have interim agreement films, you should go and promote your film. So really, it's a personal choice and preference. Yeah. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Jessica Chastain, who's promoting Memory, and she's also been at Venice promoting Memory and doing the red carpets, and we've seen her gorgeous red carpet shots and the head-to-toe glitter. She'll be here tomorrow for that film, and she's been very vocal on social media about her support for SAG-AFTRA while also promoting this film, Memory. So it's a real toss-up. Some films you get people like Dakota Johnson, who is here. You get people like Jessica Chastain, who will be here tomorrow, and then you have other films that don't have interim agreements, and nobody shows up for them. You get the director. For some films that are inspired by true events, they've been bringing people that the films are based off of, because obviously they're not related to the union. But it's definitely lacking star power this year, and TIFF is finding creative ways to work around it. And as a fan of film, you come to see the films, you don't necessarily come to see the celebrities, but some people are here for the celebrity star power, and it's a very different year for them. It
definitely draws in the majority and just the vibe of the city, I think, overall, to help bring in people who aren't necessarily into that exact film side.
100%. Yeah, it's even the star power that they do have is drawing interesting crowds, right? Nickelback had their premiere. Yeah. So downtown was all Nickelback fans. They came from far and wide to see the free concert and see the premiere and the red carpet. And then there's other films happening like Lil Nas X. You have Lil Nas X fans all downtown trying to get a glimpse of him. But that's maybe not necessarily the crowd that TIFF usually draws. It's not really music fans that typically inhabit the film fest streets, but this year they're here, and I think that's kind of a good thing, because maybe they'll see other films, maybe they'll learn about Canadian films while they're here, maybe they'll get a sense of the festival and realize we're a cool vibe too. It's not a music festival, it's a film festival, but it's still worth coming and taking part in, so for sure, maybe it's a good thing.
Well, and I don't know too if it's largely due to how different TIFF is this year, but we were surprised at how much music influenced things there were. Yeah. Even in terms of the films, having Nickelback, having Lil Nas X, having even the Talking Heads sort of reunion with that. Yeah. We were surprised because there was actually a lot going on.
Yeah. And we wonder, is that part of because of the strike, because they are lacking that celebrity factor? Are they bringing more music stars because they can be here? Maybe, you know?
Could be. You even have films like Flora and Son, which is a film about a music story, about a mother and a son and their story with music. So it feels like music is just an overarching theme of the selections this year.
Yeah.
And maybe some of that was in anticipation of SAG-AFTRA. I also just wonder, like, if, you know, films go through their trends and, like, we see years where there's, like, a lot of war pieces, or there's like a lot of women's stories pieces, like you know, so maybe it's just one of the themes of films this year is music. And it's interesting thinking about that in the context of how long it takes to make a film and the pandemic. Like during pandemic times, like you saw a lot of people leaning into documentary, and you saw a lot of people leaning into stories of joy and trying to find joy, and music is a source of joy for so many people. You guys know that better than anyone. So maybe this is kind of a product of that.
Yeah. Well, I went to the midnight premiere of Dix the Musical, and that is definitely full music completely. But it was so nice because everyone was so involved. Like, people were clapping after, like, every performance in the film. It just felt really alive in the theater, which I feel like otherwise you don't always have, you know? So that was nice.
Yeah, I'm really loving the music ties coming into the film festival more. Even last year, how we saw Taylor Swift do her All Too Well 10-minute short film. Like, maybe this is a new wave of bringing in music into the film festival, which I'm all for.
And another person who was here is Finn Wolfhard, who had a Midnight Madness premiere for his film, and the day before his premiere, he played on the FanFest stage, which was so cool. He had a great crowd turn up for his show. It was like a lot of young women, like a lot of really excited young fans, and we saw a little bit of his set. We saw the opening, and he was so happy to be playing downtown. It was like, this is so cool. So cool that you can kind of do all of your passions in one festival.
Yeah, because even Maya Hawke, like, she's in music as well. So there's so much crossover, you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of music, let's dive into some of the films that we got to see. Jess and I got to see the Nickelback documentary, and we were on the red carpet as well, taking that.
We had Nickelback all day. Yeah. It was a Nickelback day.
Doesn't that give like an MMVA's like 2000s vibe to it? Like that's so much fun.
It really does. Yeah.
It was back to back. We had them in studio too, and it was just, they're the best. Yeah. Like,
super nice guys. Do not deserve the hate that they get, that's for sure. And I hope we both got to watch the film, and it really does address all the hate that they got, and kind of just randomly and then sporadically, it just started out of kind of nowhere.
I think it really was the rise of the meme culture,
media,
and everything coming up like that.
Yeah, so. Well, in the documentary, they said like they were kind of like canceled before cancel culture became a thing, and literally for no reason, just existing, which is terrible. But they talk about in the film how it obviously affects them, but they are kind of able to just, like, you know, dust it off. But it also affects like their children and when they go to school. And it's it was an emotional film and documentary. So I'm hoping that once people start to see that, maybe it'll change a lot of people's minds about Nickelback and about, you know, the legacy that they've built, because they have done huge things. Yeah.
They had a really cool tweet. I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was something to the effect of how this premiere felt like a momentous, like, spotlight on their career. Like, it felt like a big moment that you work towards, and like it was really emotional for them. I think it's kind of cool, like TIFF could have acted as a reset button for their public. Again, this is like the PR coming out in me, like their relationship with the public and just how public this moment was. It was like the free concert at FanFest that filled the streets all the way back, right? Like people just wanting to come out and support and be a part of their moment, reclaiming all of this. And like even in the industry center, if you have an industry pass for TIFF this year, they have a huge poster for Nickelback, and it's like right when you walk in, you can't miss it. So it's really prevalent and really like they're here, and it's their moment.
Yeah. And they mentioned to us on the carpet around just sort of the premise of being Canadian and having like such a long running history with everything here, that it only felt right to do it here, to have the premiere be a part of this, and it wouldn't have been the same somewhere else. So no, it's nice to see lots of Canadian stuff going on.
I want Avril Lavigne to be the next Canadian music film doc at TIFF. We need her story here.
That would be great.
Right? Get her on the FanFest stage. I want to know everything that happened when she was like out of the spotlight for a minute, and now she has this big comeback story. Like, get her your TIFF. Let's do it.
That would be great. Yeah. I'd love to see that.
Do you guys have who from the Canadian music scene do you think needs a doc at TIFF?
Oof.
I think it would be interesting to see something around the weekend. Because I feel like there's so many different paths that he's gone down, too, that would be really interesting.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm blanking on all Canadian artists right now. Celine Dion. Does she have a documentary already? I feel like she must.
I don't know,
Maybe
though.
not. That would be huge, though.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Speaking of more artists and music at TIFF, we were all at the Lil Nas X premiere of Long Live Montero. Liz, tell us a little bit about what you thought about that.
I was so stressed about my outfit going into this one. Like, we have to start there. This was weeks of trying to figure out what we were going to do because we were seeing Beyonce, like, tour vibes. We were seeing Taylor Swift tour vibes. So me and my friends Victoria and Marissa, who are also creators, we've been doing everything together. We were like, we need to have our outfits, like, dressed for Lil Nas X. Like, you can't go to Lil Nas X and not have, like, some glitter, have 100%. A little moment. And I think that vibe really, like, carried with us through. We did the red carpet on the RBC side of the red carpet. That was really fun. The fans were really excited, even though we had to leave early to get to the premiere. We didn't get to see him walk the carpet. Yeah, it was, you know, that's how red carpets work. That's what I was trying to tell myself, right? Like, it's funny, like, for the fans to try and get, like, that moment of feeling like they were a part of it, but then you wait for so long for 30 seconds. Like,
I know.
For the diehards, it's worth it. Like, that was me last year with Harry Styles. Like, we were all, I was doing my policeman coverage the whole lead up to TIFF and helping people get spots on the barricade and, like, just telling people how TIFF works. They could come be a part of the festival. And, you know, it was all for, like, a minute of him walking outside. But, you know, that was my version of Lil Nas X.
For sure.
This year. The premiere itself we had a blast. Like, the directors opened by saying, like, you know, we want you singing and dancing in your seats. Don't be quiet. This is a concert film. Like, enjoy it. So we were like, okay, like, we love Lil Nas X. We are such fans of who he is, what he stands for, and his music bops. Like,
and that was a great album.
It was a great
like,
album.
Front to back. I love that album.
No skips. No skips. So we were sitting on the balcony, and he and his team were, like, the next section over, kind of in, like, we could see him, he could see us. Okay. We were jamming.
I love
that. We were, like, dancing, we were singing, we were fist bumping, and the people around us were like,
what's going on?
What's going on? And I'm like, did you not hear the opening? Like, the director said, like, we don't want you quiet in your chairs. We want you high energy, like, singing. So anyway, we followed the instructions. We were like, say less. Like, you tell us to jump, we'll say how high. Like, we had such a blast. And the film is so meant for that. Like, I hope the fans, like, have watch parties and watch it together and really enjoy the moment. Because I didn't get to see the tour, but I think if you did see it, you would watch this film and still get so much more from what you may have gotten from the live experience.
Funny enough, so when he had his show here in Toronto on that tour, it was during TIFF last year. And I, by fluke, managed to squeeze it in, and I'm so glad I did. It was such a good show, but getting to see it in that sense of, like, all the behind the scenes, the lead up to it, his, like, whole vision, and I don't know if I even told you, but he had basically almost like a playbook that everyone got when they came into the tour.
That's nice.
So it felt like a whole, like, work of art that he was masterminding.
There were people on the red carpet that had those for him.
Really?
They were hoping for him to sign them. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That must be so full circle for them.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so much thought that went into every piece of that show that, like, you saw them constructing the stage and the costumes and him explaining, like, when this happens, it means this. Like, those are the kinds of things, like, when Lady Gaga put out her documentary about Joanne and the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, that Super Bowl halftime show is forever in my memory now because I think about her talking about, she had that line about the jacket, like, if the jacket takes me 4 seconds instead of 3 seconds to put on, it impacts all of these things. And I just love hearing all of that intelligence that goes into this art. It's so, like, it's so much more meticulous than I think people get exposed to.
It's down to the second. It was like that with the J-Lo documentary as well, with their Super Bowl. Like, it's crazy what goes into these things.
Yeah, and I feel like people will really also see a side of Lil Nas X that you don't really see in the media. I haven't looked into him, like, too deeply. I know him obviously from the media and from the music world, but he's such a funny guy and so down to earth and, like, never serious, and I love that about him. And I think people watching that who may not know so much about him will really love him even after watching that documentary.
Yeah.
This is really a film about Black queer joy at its most raw and intimate and vulnerable. And I think it perfectly suspended him between the history of Black queer music and the future of Black queer music and who he is in that narrative, kind of understanding everyone who's paved the path for him, the responsibility that he has and the controversies that he's faced in this moment, and then looking ahead to what he wants the path to be moving forward for himself and then for everybody that's coming up with him and behind him. Yeah. And I think that narrative is a really hard one to do justice in like 90 minutes. And they somehow managed to ground it in that joy and hilarity and just goofy nature that he has. And I think it was just brilliant the way that they were able to like make that point by just grounding it in like, this is just who he is.
Such a good balance between, I mean, his comedy and just how he takes on life, but then also a more raw and like in-depth look into how he sees everything. I thought it was so impressive to be able to have that outlook on like protesters at a show when, you know, that's crazy, right? But yet he sees it almost with both sides of like being that open-minded because he's trying to just create a really safe environment, and it's really nice to see.
And you saw people like Madonna who came to his show, like that. There's so many people that came to his tour, right? Like, Madonna was not the only superstar god that showed up for his tour, but like the fact that he would include those moments with her, like, you know, she was so controversial, right? And now we look at her and we're like, wow, so Madonna is like iconic. Like that's who you want to be. And then they had the clips of Little Richard and the interviews that he gave, and it was just so cool to see all of these people who we have this perception of in 2023, but in their moment had such controversy and such headlines. And Lil Nas X is one of those people that in his moment, in his No Skips album era, Grammy Award winning era, he was so in the media, like so controversial. He had such hate coming towards him, but maybe there's a future state where we look back on this moment and we have this documentary to look back on this moment and say like, was it really that serious? Or was this just...
He's just trying to live his life, make music, and be iconic. Because that's what he is.
And be happy. Find happiness in it, too.
Exactly. Yeah. So at the Lil Nas X premiere of Long Live Ontario, you got to ask a question in the audience. Tell us about that.
Yeah. For those of you that might not know me, so I'm a red carpet host, and I interview, and I'm a producer by trade. So I go into these screenings, these premieres, and I'm like, I need a question. Like, I love asking questions at these premieres. And TIFF is a really cool audience like moment because they really do pick like from all over. It doesn't matter if you're in the rafters or if you're in front row, like they kind of pick from everywhere. So I knew I wanted to ask something, and I really wanted to just like see what the film had to offer, and kind of pull from there rather than have something like canned and ready to go. And in the film, without spoiling too much, there's such a beautiful depiction of like the inner child narrative, and it's really striking and one of the standout like artistic direction choices of this film. So as soon as we were like started seeing that unfold, I was like, oh, I like this is very obviously like that question, like why did they do this way? And they had a really cool like response to it, a really cool approach to it. It's on my Instagram, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to spoil it for people that want to see the film. But no, it was great. There was another girl behind me that also wanted to ask a question. There's a couple of us. So when they pointed up, like you really couldn't tell who they were pointing to. And then Lil Nas X was like, no, like the person in the front, like closer to me. And I had to like turn around and be like, like there's so many of us. I'm like, me, like that, like me. He was like, yeah, like you. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool.
Okay, let's you go first up here in the front. Like the front as in like closer to me. No, you closer to me, so you.
And I think in the video, I said like, oh, what's up? And I was like, okay, no, like continuing to my very cool, important question. So it's funny in moments like that, what comes out of your mouth versus like the calm, cool, collected you think you have in your head. And like you do, like you guys know, you do so many interviews and you have that like professional persona that can like turn on and off. And then in a room of fans like that, it's a really interesting energy to try and get like a deeper question out. So
he just has such a presence, like even on the carpet. First off, those shoes were next level. I mean,
what a tall man also. I had no idea that he was 6'1" until that day.
And then with
those
those shoes,
over everybody on the carpet.
It's crazy. We saw that a lot on the carpet where it seemed like everyone was taken aback. Like they all looked like, whoa.
Yeah, he has such a persona. Yeah.
He was slaying that carpet. I mean, I posted a video, and it's so funny because I was trying to get anything of him on the carpet for our socials, and all you hear is me being like, he's shirtless. It is such a look. He's shirtless. And then the whole way down the carpet, he's like playing with his hair. It just looked like slow-mo.
Yeah.
Oh, he's shirtless. He's shirtless. It's such a great look.
So, TIFF, obviously, so many movies to explore. Liz, tell us about some of your favorite moments so far from this TIFF.
For sure. I saw Seven Veils yesterday, which is a Canadian film featuring Amanda Seyfried, and it has an interim agreement with SAG-AFTRA. That was a really interesting experience.
Yeah.
The film is kind of a thriller. It's like really dark, really sweeps you into the music. It's about the Canadian opera and this like opera that comes back to the forefront after the passing of someone that had previously directed it. And his student, who's Amanda Seyfried in the film, brings it back to life in this like version. And it's about her story, bringing it back, and it's really intense monologues and scenes, and then you cut back to the opera and like the sweeping opera music, and in that audience with the incredible sound and the huge screen and people that are so enthralled in the film, felt like I was on a roller coaster for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting one. Also, earlier this week, like I always say, your first screening at TIFF, it doesn't matter what the movie is, but the first movie you see, you're going to say is like the best movie you've ever seen.
Right.
But the first movies I did see, I did really enjoy. Like the audiences here are so much fun.
Yeah.
If you get to see a movie at TIFF, you should. If it's in Scotiabank, if it's a premiere, people really get into it here. It really ruins movie screenings for the rest of the year for me because the TIFF audiences like have so much fun and love to laugh and clap when Anne Hathaway and Zendaya come on screen.
I was going to say, they did that at the Lil Nas X premiere, and I haven't seen that happen yet. And I was like, what is going on? Jess is like, they do this at every screening. I'm like, okay.
There's a couple of things that audiences do at TIFF. So one is the Bulgari commercial with Zendaya and Anne Hathaway. They clap for the beat of the music, and they did that last year as well. When there's an ad that comes on about piracy and like don't screen the film, and everyone goes "arr" like a pirate, and that came out of the Midnight Madness showings that's been happening for years, and that's one of my favorite ones because there's always people that have no idea it's gonna happen. And they're like,
literally, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what is this thing that everyone knows about that I'm not like looped into? What's happening?
Do you know though? Is there anything that has to be related to a meow?
Yeah, one time we were in a movie last year for TIFF, and somebody meowed, but she was the singular meower.
She was the only meow, and she was beside me, and I was like, what's going on?
I've never heard a meow at a TIFF screening, so that is now on my investigation list. I must figure that out.
Maybe she just got it wrong. Maybe she thought she was supposed to roar, and it was a meow.
Maybe, the art spoke to her, and that was her. Perhaps. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll never forget.
And she was sitting beside you.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
and
that's so funny.
Like,
we just looked over each other, we're like, okay.
All right.
Yeah, we're meowing.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, it's so fun. This is such a fun audience. And it doesn't really matter what you're seeing. It could be the saddest film you've ever seen. It could be the funniest movie you've ever seen. Like the audience is like all in it together. I haven't had any screenings in my time at TIFF that's really been like a split reaction. I haven't really seen a lot of films where people are walking out of it, and that, like those things do happen. So I don't know what it is about Canadian audiences, but we have a good time with whatever we're watching, and that makes TIFF so special. And I think also the level of formality to TIFF is really interesting. Like at Venice or Cannes, it's so intense and premium and serious, and it's just a different experience than TIFF, where it is the people's festival. It's so
more
much
attainable.
More accessible.
Yeah.
Anyone can try for tickets to anything, even like the premiere screenings, and that you can feel it in the audience, the people that are just so happy to be there. Like you have people coming from work, you have people in jeans, you have people dressed to the nines, you have people renting dresses, like you have everything, and it's just such a cool vibe to be in.
Well, and you see so much passion from movie fans. Like every day when we walk to the office and there's lineups going down the street for the rush lines, like they're so dedicated just at a chance,
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it's so funny to see people like like bring their chairs down to John Street to sit in their chair all day in the rush line. I'm like, y'all are committed, and I respect it. Like, you save on that movie ticket. You see the film you want to see. Like, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and you're going to Wildcat tonight?
I am going to Wildcat tonight with Maya Hawke and Ethan Hawke, which the reviews are interesting about it, so I'm excited to cast my own judgment and form my own opinion on it. It's almost 2 hours long. Like, it's 109 minutes or something. Like, it's that. Yeah, it's like 109 minutes.
It's a long movie.
It's a long movie. And it starts at 9, which doesn't seem like a late time, but y'all know, being at TIFF, you start your movies early in the day. So by the time you get to that 8 p.m., 9 p.m. screening, it's like you're trying to hold your eyes open. Like, you're really, I have to get a coffee in the theater to just like make it through that one in one piece.
It's a real family affair, though.
It is. So it's really interesting. It's Ethan Hawke's production company, and Maya Hawke found the story and pitched it to him in the production company and was like, this is the approach I think we should take, and I want you, my dad, Ethan, to direct it. And they got it all organized, and I think they shot it in like a very short window, like 23 days or something. Like, it was very, very short. And Maya's obviously the lead in it. It's a very complicated character. This is a person who wrote short stories that were very eccentric and very out there. And the movie's supposed to be piecing together like the short stories and then her life. And she also died young. I think she died when she was like maybe 29 or like early. And maybe it was from typhus, or anyway, she had some kind of tragic early end to her life. So it's her life and the art she was able to make in the time she was alive. She's also a bit of a controversial figure. Like, she had slurs in her writing that, like, the writing does not really stand the test of time. Right. So I'm interested to see how they grapple with those themes and if they do it justice, or what kind of story they're bringing to the screen. And it's interesting, they've done some articles and interviews about like what it's like to be a father-daughter duo in the industry, and they have a big variety piece that's out. So they're really trying to sell this like angle.
Well, I found it interesting that there's so much obviously around the father-daughter and that they're both coming, but I read online that her brother is also in it, and that apparently his current wife is also listed as a producer.
Wow, very
so
big family
I'm
affair.
Like, damn, okay, everyone's getting in on this.
I didn't know that. Why aren't they selling the whole family?
I know.
Maybe they were like, that's too much family. We're just going to go with the two that are the most
just
known.
a piece.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's what I saw online. I don't know, maybe it's not 100% true, but that's what it said.
Tonight.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'll be watching those credits. I'll be seeing how many Hawks are there.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So, Liz, can you tell us a little bit of what is the most anticipated films of TIFF this year, and what's the biggest ones to come out of this festival?
So there's a lot of films here that we're going to see throughout all of award season. Next year, you have premieres that are going to be running through award season. You have films that have also been to Venice and Cannes that are going to continue going through the film festival circuit, and will continue having legs as we get towards like Oscars season, Oscar nominations. You have films that are here like Anatomy of the Fall, Zone of Interest. Those are getting major, major buzz. I think one of the interesting points of TIFF that when you look at award season mapping, you kind of take these notes from TIFF and put them in the back of your brain and then see how they play out across, is the Tribute Awards, which happened last night. So the Tribute Awards go to a variety of folks every year. You have some directors, you have some actors, you have some talent, and they get these really prestigious pieces. Last year, they went to Brendan Fraser and Michelle Yeoh, who ended up winning Best Actor, Best Actress. In the past, it's gone to Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Benedict Cumberbatch for Power of the Dog. So these are people that were front runners or ended up winning their categories at the Oscars further down. So they really are flags to say like, okay, these are people we should be watching. This year, Coleman Domingo won an award, and I think he's going to be one of the front runners this year. I have chills thinking about his performance. He was so fantastic, and it's really a cool moment for him. There's been very few Black men that have been nominated for Best Leading Actor, so if he is on the card, he's joining a very small group of people. It'd be very, very significant for him. And I really think that he deserves to be on the ballot this year. So that was a really cool note this year to see from TIFF, honor him in this way. You also have a lot of directors that joined us this year that I think we will see throughout award season, whether it's Emmys, whether it's Oscars, whether it's Lifetime Achievement, whether it's, you know, whatever these narratives end up being. So Spike Lee was here. I think that's a note that we should all take note of. He's going to be another as always, a huge presence this season.
Yeah.
Sean Levy had an inaugural award this year, and he's the director of All the Light We Cannot See. And that is a series coming to Netflix very soon, a very highly anticipated book adaptation. So what will end up with him this season, we're unsure. Jessica Chastain's coming from Memory, and that film is getting a lot of buzz. So her presence and her attitude towards like supporting SAG-AFTRA and this film, I think, is going to be really notable on the carpet here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, I think, one of the most significant moments. You also have the People's Choice, which is all of the new premieres that come to TIFF. Audiences can vote for the film that they think was the best. In the past, Taika Waititi won for Jojo Rabbit, and then that went on to win an Oscar for adapted screenplay, and he premiered last night. So that's another note that we can take and see kind of what will run through the season.
Nice. Well, we'll bring back around this interview during award season and see if Liz gets any right.
We'll see what it's on. Like, mark the time. Mark the time and day. We cast it here first.
Yeah, for
Amazing.
sure. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure.
So much fun.
To
Happy
have you
TIFF.
on.
Happy TIFF. We have a few more days to go.
Yeah, happy TIFF. It is such a busy time in Toronto. And make sure to follow us on Behind Our Lens Pod, and you can keep up to date with everything to come.
Nice. We'll see you next time.
Bye.